The world is getting Claude pilled one by one, starting with engineers, and now broader knowledge workers seem to be getting Claude pilled just as quickly. And I'm making the argument that Claude and Anthropic actually is kind of quietly winning. And it's really exciting to see because just a few months ago, Elon Musk said that there was a 0 chance Anthropic was ever going to win. But they are a big threat to the frontier labs right now. And I'm going to explain why. All right, so let's talk about it. First is this Wall Street Journal article. Claude is taking the AI world by storm, and even non-nerds are blown away. Yes, thank you, Wall Street Journal, non-nerds. So what they are talking about is first Claude Code. And here they kind of start the article saying they call it getting Claude pilled. I made a video about this a few weeks ago, how it just seems like everybody is talking about Claude right now. It's kind of a super interesting time because there are a bunch of really compelling AI coding assistants out there. Whether you're talking about Codex, you could talk about IDEs like Cursor and Windsurf. You could talk about more kind of holistic solutions like Devin. But what we're actually seeing, especially if you're on Twitter and X a lot, is everybody seems to be talking about Claude. And there seems to be something really special with Claude Code specifically. Now, Anthropic has always been known as the kind of the premier coding models. That is what they're focused on. And we're going to talk a bit more about their focus as a company because I see that as a differentiator versus Google versus OpenAI. They're kind of spreading their bets all over, whereas Anthropic is going deep on the enterprise coding use case. It's the moment software engineers, executives, and investors turn their work over to Anthropic's Claude AI and then witness a thinking machine of shocking capability, even in an age awash in powerful artificial intelligence tools. So that seems to be really the crux of this article. And I think it really came to a head when Claude Cowork came out. And so if you're not familiar with Claude Cowork, you have Claude Code, which is a CLI tool product. It allows you to submit a prompt and it kind of manages the agents, manages the context, manages the memory in the background. And apparently, and I've used it a few times, it is incredibly good, seemingly much better according to a lot of developers that I follow on X than what else is out there from other frontier labs. But then Anthropic started to notice that developers were using Claude Code for a lot more things than just coding. Whether we're talking about building presentations or creative writing, doing things on your desktop, they realized, hey, if I just give Claude Code access to my environment, my local computer, I give it files or tools, why is it constrained to just code? Why can't it do other things? And of course it can. As long as code is powering the thing you're trying to build. And again, you can do PowerPoints in code. You can do anything in code, really. Anything that's on the computer, you can basically code. As soon as they realized that, Claude Code started doing more. And so Anthropic was looking at this and they said, oh, wow, a lot of people are doing a lot of different things, a lot of different cool use cases. We should probably build something for that. So a couple weeks ago, January 12th, Boris Cherny and the Anthropic team announced that they were releasing Claude Cowork. And I already made a video about this, but what really makes it interesting is they took Claude Code and they wrapped it in an interface for what the Wall Street Journal describes as non-nerds. And so essentially it is Claude Code with a nice user interface. And I've been playing around with it a little bit, not too extensively yet, but it essentially just gives Claude Code access to your environment, to your local computer, and it can do things like edit files and create files and everything that Claude Code can do, except you kind of point it towards things like broader knowledge work, whether we're talking about presentations or documents, PDFs, anything like that. And so it was really kind of an interesting time. And there was a few things that especially made it interesting. First, Boris and his team built it in like a week and a half. Every single line of code was written by Claude Code. And that's kind of the Claude pill that we've been talking about. It really seems, and I have just made a short about this as well, a lot of the most well-known developers in the industry are saying, hey, the age of writing code manually, writing syntax as a developer, that's dead. Now, that doesn't mean development as a skill set is dead. It's actually quite alive. And so it's not just about writing the syntax. It's about understanding how all of these systems come together. It's about understanding systems thinking. And if you are an amazing engineer, you're just going to be that much more productive with something like Claude Code. So they released Claude Cowork, basically built with Claude Code. All right, so we have this Wall Street Journal article talking about Claude Code, and obviously a lot of people are talking about it, a lot of people enjoy it, but my specific point is that Anthropic is quietly winning. So this is kind of argument number one. Claude Code is everywhere, and now Claude Cowork is starting to be everywhere. Let's go to the next part of my argument. Anthropic's revenue. So according to the information, Anthropic projects $70 billion in revenue, $17 billion in cash flow in 2028. Anthropic raised its most optimistic revenue forecast for the year by roughly 26% to $4.7 billion from a projection it gave investors ahead of its March round. It lifted its 2026 forecast 28% to $15.2 billion. That's a projection for 2026. OpenAI in 2025 is already at $20 billion. Now, here's the difference. A lot of Anthropic's revenue, the vast majority of Anthropic's revenue comes from its API, comes from selling to enterprise and selling tokens through its API to enterprise. And mostly they're doing it for coding use cases. On the other hand, OpenAI is mostly revenue from subscriptions. That is $20 a month, and it is more on the consumer side. Now they have a booming enterprise business, but I think the perception is, and the revenue mix reflects it, OpenAI, at least for now, has the majority of their revenue coming from consumer subscriptions. But Anthropic's revenue continues to grow, and they're hyper-focused. And remember the hyper-focused angle, because I'm going to be coming back to that. And I am a huge proponent of focus. And it seems like OpenAI, and even Google in some ways, is taking an opposite approach. They are just putting AI in everything and doing everything. And when you think about OpenAI, you think about their consumer business. You think about they do have enterprise. They're building a device. They have an image generator. They have Sora. So they have kind of that social network. And so they just have so many different features that they are trying to push. And when you have limited resources, although their resources are enormous, anytime that there are finite resources, if you're spreading them thin, you're never going to be as good at everything as you would be at one thing if you kind of invested all of your resources into that one thing. And that is the strategy that Anthropic is taking. And hey, look at this. Claude Code is close to generating annualized revenue of $1 billion, up from roughly 400 million in July. Wow. Crazy. These are crazy numbers. Okay. So that's number two. They are growing revenue like crazy, and it is sustainable revenue. This is not the type of revenue that somebody's just going to try out the product and then churn a month or 2 months later. They are most likely landing large deals, and they're most likely serving API calls into things like Cursor and other products that just eat up all of those tokens, and they are not going anywhere. And a quick thank you to Dell Technologies for sponsoring this portion of the video. Check out the new Dell Pro Max workstation with NVIDIA RTX Pro Blackwells built in. This thing is an absolute beast for AI workloads. With NVIDIA RTX Pro, you now have a supercomputer sitting on your desk, and it can do more with local AI than ever before. So learn more about Dell Pro Max. Click the link in the description below to let them know I sent you. So here's the next thing. 6 months ago, Jensen said he pretty much disagreed with almost everything Dario Amodei said about AI. Now, remember, Anthropic really started with a culture of safety. They invested heavily into safety research. They talk about safety research. They talk about how open source is not the right way. And I don't believe Anthropic has any open source models. And of course, if you're NVIDIA and specifically Jensen, you want open source. You want the most amount of people using models, because those models are getting run on NVIDIA chips. And so that's kind of the fundamental disagreement. And also, I think Dario and team are kind of unique in that they are especially afraid of artificial intelligence. Maybe afraid is the wrong word, but they are cautious. Yeah, so he accused Anthropic of fear-mongering and trying to monopolize AI development, which, he's not necessarily wrong about. I think if we're talking about regulatory capture and things of that like, Anthropic probably has been or will be pushing on that front. Now, if they genuinely believe that if AI is developed in an open source way, that is going to be harmful to the world, or that is the highest security and safety risk, then I think, that's their position and that's fine. But I don't agree with that. It just happens to be, I think that's their position. And so of course they're going to try to promote regulation that makes it so that, I guess at the same time, only they can be developing frontier models. Then NVIDIA invested $10 billion into Anthropic. And by the way, NVIDIA is invested into absolutely everybody. It's kind of wild. They're funding everybody. They are investing in everybody. They're giving everybody chips. Everybody's paying them. And if you remember, the information had that nice kind of incestuous round robin revenue infographic. That was a fun one to try to break down. Okay, so then at Davos, which is happening right now, we have Jensen basically praising Anthropic and how good Claude is. Claude is incredible. Anthropic made a huge leap in coding and reasoning. NVIDIA uses it all over. Every software company needs to use it. And I think it's kind of the sentiment in engineering land right now is that Claude Code is something special and everybody seems to be using it. So you have people starting to realize, and when I say people, I'm talking about the top AI leaders. I'm talking about Jensen, that Claude Code is something special and companies are adopting it more and more. And this is not something that is easily displaced. Once a company adopts artificial intelligence, especially for something like coding, it is very hard to switch those habits, especially when you have a massive organization around it. Change management is very difficult. So again, the thesis, Anthropic is quietly winning. This is another argument in that direction. And who remembers this absolutely phenomenal essay by A16Z, Why Software is Eating the World? This was Mark Andreessen, one of the founding partners of A16Z. All right, so why do I bring this up now? Software is eating the world. This was written in 2011. Software did eat the world and continues to eat the world. And the premise of this essay is that any area that can be automated with software will be automated with software. And there is essentially unlimited demand for software. But now fast forward, we're in 2026. Software is certainly eating the world, but AI is eating software. We have unlimited demand for software, and all of a sudden we have the ability to create unlimited software with AI. It's kind of a wild place to be. And then if all the major companies and kind of the culture of engineering is gravitating towards Claude Code, it seems like the software that's getting written is all going to be written by Claude Code. Thus, everybody's going to be paying Anthropic for the right to develop all of this software. And I want to talk a little bit about their culture now. So they released this document, the Claude Constitution. If you haven't seen it, I'll probably make another video breaking it down in much more detail. But the gist is, and it's kind of interesting to think about, again, they see things very differently. Right? They're obsessed with AI safety, and they really see artificial intelligence as eventually, if not already, a living, breathing being. And so for the Claude Constitution, this constitution is not for humans. It is for the AI. So they wrote this massive document essentially explaining to the AI about itself. Claude's constitution is a detailed description of Anthropic's intentions for Claude's values and behavior. It plays a crucial role in our training process, and its content directly shapes Claude's behavior. It's also the final authority on our vision for Claude, and our aim is for all our other guidance and training to be consistent with it. The document is written with Claude as its primary audience, so it might read differently than you expect. For example, it's optimized for precision over accessibility, and it covers various topics that may be of less interest to human readers. The reason I'm bringing this up, and without getting into too much detail about the specific constitution, is because Anthropic has something special with their culture. And while other frontier labs are either losing founders, gaining founders, having controversy and drama, Anthropic quietly, heads down, plugging away, building in the direction that they believe will create AGI. And I think they have something like 7 founders, maybe more, and all of them are still there. You never hear about any drama around their co-founders, and that is very different from what you hear elsewhere. So I made this spreadsheet comparing all of the main players in artificial intelligence. And yes, I still do consider Apple a main player. Now, what I wanted to point out is, look, this is all a very much bull case for Anthropic, but Anthropic is still missing a few key ingredients that their competitors, especially Google, have and will leverage against them at every point. So Anthropic has a frontier model. If I remember correctly, they're actually going to be buying chips, TPUs from Google. They don't have their own custom silicon. They don't have existing revenue. They do have top researchers. They're not building their own consumer hardware. They don't already have a large user base. They don't have their own data, and they do have some integrations. So although this whole video is a very much bull case for Anthropic, they still have some key missing ingredients. All right, so let me summarize this all. We have more and more developers getting Claude pilled. They seem to have built something incredibly special with Claude Code, and a lot of people say it is just leaps and bounds better than other AI coding agents on the market. We have Anthropic's revenue growing. We have their profit margins doing pretty well and growing. Apparently, I also read that their cost to run inference is actually lower per token than OpenAI. They have an incredible culture. All the founders are still there. People love to work there. They just released Claude Cowork. If code ends up being the language of AGI, boy, are they well positioned. And so that is my bull case for Anthropic. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.